Welcome, everybody. Today we have an amazing guest, Chris Barrett, and Chris is exceptional at what he does. Just take a look at this. I keep you from buying the wrong company and help you grow the right one. That is all we want to do, really. And frankly, very few of us are actually qualified to go through all the numbers and understand that first hurdle of what is the right company. So welcome, Chris. Great to have you on board and good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you as well. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here.
Well, this is such an important topic, Chris, because there are so many things that can go wrong. And I understand that Jose and Nicole, clients of yours, have recently just crossed the line and got their own business after a year of work. Is that right?
It is, yeah. We just they just announced that on LinkedIn. It's very exciting for them to finally get through the finish line.
Now, it's a year of work to get there. But
Mhm.
the most important thing is that year of doing the research, finding the right business could very well save them 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 years if they bought the wrong business.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and there was dead deals along the way, right? There was ones I think they were under LOI at least once or twice. I have to chat with them to remember, but that's not atypical, right? Most clients, I'd say, are taking somewhere between 1 and 3 years from the start of their search to actually finally closing on their first acquisition is generally what we're seeing.
Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Are they too slow? Are they not qualified to be running a business and be buying a business? Why that time frame?
I think part of the reason is just it's a hard process, right? It takes a long time to find a good business to buy. There's certain things that constrain you, right? There's the size of the company, right? Usually people are looking for a business in a certain size range, generally, 750, maybe 2 million in EBITDA is where a lot of our clients are looking for. And there's not that many companies that are coming up for sale all over the country in that area. There's a fair number, but when they do come up, there's usually a lot of people that are looking to buy them. And then some people are constrained by where they want to live. So if you're only going to live in a certain area, you're either constrained to that type of business, which is already somewhat rare, and now it has to pop up within maybe a 45-minute radius of the spot that you want to live. So then you're constrained even deeper. So, and then finally, I guess, with the type of business you want to buy. So it could meet all those boxes, but then it might be in an industry that you have no desire in operating or running. So that's just another box that now needs to get checked. I mean, we had one client who they wanted to buy, there was a major metropolitan they did live in, but they wanted to live exactly there. They wanted a business in about that size range, and it had to be in a specific industry of manufacturing, a subset of manufacturing itself, and it had to be in that industry. And it took them 3 years to eventually find the business. But then once they did find it, they were ready to move really quickly. I think that's a lot of the reason why it takes a long time. And then sometimes you do find that deal and it's finally the one you want. And then it turns out the price is wrong, or you get into diligence and there's something that was hidden beneath the surface that ends up killing the deal. And then you're back to square one again.
Let's talk about that thing hidden beneath the surface. That's your job, isn't it? You're the one that finds that hidden thing.
Yeah, it's a big part of what we do here. Looking, what we do, our main offering is quality of earnings reports, quality of earnings analysis. And what that is we are looking to verify that what's been reported by the sell side is actually true and accurate. And we're also looking for things that could be potential risk factors that maybe even the seller hadn't thought about. Like some of these small businesses, the seller is not thinking like a buyer. This might be the first time they ever sold a business, and they're not just going to come out and tell you all the risk factors about their company. So you really do need to go and dig beneath the surface to figure out what are some of the underlying issues for this business. We had a deal just last week where customer concentration is a big thing that you need to be looking at with these companies. And the seller had reported that there was about 20% customer concentration, which is large, but it's not an insurmountable number in most cases. However, once we start digging into diligence, we realized that a lot of their sales were intercompany sales, and then a lot of the expenses were intercompany expenses. So the impact to EBITDA was actually very low because all the sales and expenses offset to zero. But when you stripped out a lot of those intercompany sales, well, now the the customer concentration went from 20% to 60%. So that now results in a much bigger risk factor that even though EBITDA didn't change at all, there is still a risk that the buyer is now taking on that they otherwise may not have known that they were taking on. And ultimately, they decided to walk away from that deal because they couldn't find a way to protect themselves enough to feel comfortable with that particular business.
So, do you just do the numbers, or do the numbers bring out things that, from an operational perspective, from a contract perspective, from where they've got licenses with other vendors or vendors to, how far do you go into that sort of thing?
Yeah, we want to understand the numbers, obviously, but the numbers tell a story and they connect to the business and the operations as a whole. So when you start seeing things where margins are suspiciously high and the owner says that they don't do any work in the business and that they're paying themselves a fair wage, well, you start digging, you think, well, that might not be totally true. And maybe the owner has really high margins because they're doing a ton of the work themselves. You might dig in and find that the business has, the typical terms with customers are really long. It takes them a really long time to get paid, which greatly impacts the working capital that's required to run that type of business. You might find that all the sales come from one salesperson in particular, and that leads you to need to really understand how that relationship works with the business. And is that person going to maintain going forward? What are you going to do to keep them happy? Are there ways to diversify against that? All those sorts of things, they tie back to the financials, and they're risk factors that you need to understand if you're going to go and close on these businesses, especially these small businesses where they're so delicate. I tell people when you're buying this small business, you're buying a really delicate asset, and then right after you close, you've just shaken it like really, really hard. And now there's literally a lot of things that are going to break, and that's why that J curve is very real. And you need to make sure that when you come in to close on that business, you have a good idea of what has potential to break and how you're going to protect yourself against that.
The first thing that's going to break are the people. That's it. The people will break, especially in the smaller businesses. It's going to be the people that are going to break because they're used to things. They're comfortable. And now you've bought it. And my son's business got taken over, a software development company. And a couple of Americans flew over to Australia and they stood up in the town hall meeting to say, okay, we're venture capitalists, we've taken over this business. Nothing's going to change.
That's a lie, right?
Huge lie, of course. But why would you buy a business if you're not going to change things? You're not buying a business for status quo. And if you try and deceive the personnel in any fashion and say, no, nothing's going to change, they're going to know, and they're not going to trust you from that point on. You've got to be open with them, got to tell them the truth and figure out how you're going to make it work between the new and where you are right now. So, this conversation, I think, is just so important because mortals like myself just don't have the skill set to go through the numbers and understand what those implications are to the operations of the business, what the numbers show as red flags. Now, question for you, how often does the vendor hire you in contrast to the buyer?
So we do a fair number of sell side projects, but the majority of our business is buy side. So I'd say like at Midwest, we're probably 90% of our projects are on the buy side, helping buyers that are acquiring these small businesses. However, we do some sell side projects that I'd like to do more. I just haven't. Most of my business development has been on the buy side, but there's a lot of opportunity for sellers that are preparing to sell to understand that when a buyer comes to buy your business, there's going to be a diligence process, and they're probably going to hire someone like me to go through your numbers and find out what are the actual earnings of this business, what is the actual working capital that's required, what are the risk factors that are at play here. And by getting ahead of that, the reason that deals die, at least at a high level, right? The reason that deals will die is because there's some sort of misunderstanding or misalignment of expectations between the buy side and the sell side. Right? You sign this LOI, and then you get deeper into the process, then you go negotiate the purchase agreement, and all of a sudden somebody thought something was going to be one way and it ended up being another way, and then the deal falls apart. And if you as the seller can get ahead of any issues that the buyer is going to find early in the process and bring them out right at the front, right at the start, so they know what they're getting into, it greatly decreases the likelihood that the deal will fall apart. It also helps you maybe put a positive spin on it, or be prepared to answer those types of questions, or even maybe decide you're not going to sell right now and you are going to go and fix some of those issues over the next year, and then you're going to sell 12 months.
Exactly. It allows you to plan for the sale, to put the right processes, put the right procedures in place, remove some of those red flags that a professional like yourself identifies just by looking at them, thinking, yeah, okay, this doesn't work here. The buyer's going to look at this and say no and move on to the next one. And it will also increase your purchase price as well, because you're a good business. You're a good looking business now. If you take that time to do this. Now, the reason why I asked you about that was because I always, before I buy a business, I want the business to invest the skin in the game and go and see someone like yourself to actually come back and look at their own business. Because once they commission someone like yourself and then they get the report back and they look at it, they're in a better frame of mind to understand their business and also to negotiate with and to work with. Now, they may not want to fix up those issues, but they can at least see the issues now and know, oh, okay, this is why I'm getting the price. This is why I'm getting the terms that I'm getting now. But if they look at it and say, no, I can fix this, excellent, and I'll get a 50% increase in my price. Fine, I'm going to put the effort in. And I probably, okay, where do they go from there? They get the report, they look at it, they decide they're going to fix it up themselves. Now, they're in the situation right now because of what they know and what they don't know. They now know more because of what you've given them, but are they going to know how to fix it? Where do they go from there?
Yeah, I think it depends on the issues. Sometimes it's like sometimes you might have a business where they're really poor at managing their cash flow, right? They've had no debt in their business for a very long time. If someone pays them in 40 days instead of 30 days, it's not that big a deal to them. If they have 6 months of inventory on hand instead of 3, it is what it is. But when we do our process, we might show them, when you go and sell this business, you're going to have to sell it with the normal level of working capital that you've been operating this company with. If you're able to show that the working capital required is lower and be able to, get paid quicker, pay your vendors at the due date, decrease your inventory levels, that's going to greatly decrease the amount of working capital that is shown to be the normal level in this business, which means you're going to be able to keep more of your company when you go and sell it. So maybe working with, hiring a good controller or a fractional CFO or someone that can come in and help you put the processes in place to improve those operations, those accounting type operations in your business to get paid quicker, to pay your vendors at the due date, is going to increase the value of your company. You might find that you have a lot of customer concentration, right? Like, like that business that I just mentioned earlier that really had 60%, they thought it was 20%. Have something like we find that early on, he gets 60% customer concentration. Well, a few things would happen. One, when you go and list the company, let's say they decide they don't want to fix it. When you go and list it, the buyer's going to know up front, right? So if they go and get under LOI and they knew up front in the SIM that it said 60% customer concentration, well, that that's not going to be something that gets uncovered and is going to break the deal down the road. But you might decide that you found that issue and then you do want to go ahead and fix it. So you can find a way to start diversifying your customer base at this stage. And maybe a year from now, you get that 60% down to 30%. You've de-risked the business somewhat. And now you can go ahead and sell at a higher multiple. Sometimes that involves once you know what you need to do, you can go out and do it, and you can go out and execute on that. But sometimes you do need someone to help guide you through that process. And some people are hiring consultants. Could be someone more of like an operations consultant. It could be someone that's more of like a business coach, or maybe a broker that's able to walk you through the steps that you need to do to make your company more valuable, or sometimes a financial professional like a fractional CFO or a controller or something like that.
Okay. So businesses often, when they go to sell, they go and see their accountant. They go and see their financial advisor. How much is that costing them?
It depends, right? So it depends on how large the business is and how deep they want the professional to go. If they're just saying, "Hey, I'm gonna sell," and they don't want too much, then it might just be a quick phone call. But if you want a deep analysis, you're selling, let's say, a $5 million company, and you want a sell side quality of earnings analysis done, depending on your provider, you could be looking at 20, 30, $40,000, depending on the complexity of your business. Again, going to vary quite a bit. There's a reason that's a big range there. It's going to be determined a lot by scoping and the complexity of your company in particular. But let's say it's on that higher end. Let's say you're paying $40,000 and you're selling your business for 4 times a multiple of EBITDA. If that professional is able to help show that you have $10,000 more of earnings, they've already paid for their report. And if they're able to help you de-risk the company in some way, and get you an extra half turn of EBITDA, and your EBITDA is $1 million, right? It doesn't take very long for you to be able to for someone good to be able to pay for themselves. That's preparing you for a sale.
I didn't express myself very well. That was a great response, but I didn't express myself very well there. I was more concerned about these people going to their usual accountant, their usual business or financial advisor, and them not being qualified to do this. How much is it costing them in their business? It could be costing them a multiple, surely.
Yeah. And kind of going back to, I guess it's the opposite of my answer, right? So I said someone good can get you an extra turn of EBITDA or an extra half turn of EBITDA, or find an extra $50,000 that can be added back or adjusted. And that could very easily be hundreds of thousands or more in enterprise value, in which case they're paying themselves many times over. And it also makes the process of selling the company smoother. So I have attorneys, for example, that when they're writing LOIs for their clients, they write in the LOI that the sell side must get competent legal counsel, just to make sure that it's listed in there that you're dealing with another M&A attorney, not the seller's divorce attorney. And it's similar with accountants, right? If it's someone that just prepares the tax return, they're just churning out 1040s every year and just doing individual taxes, that person probably isn't qualified to be doing sell side quality of earnings, or prepping a seller to get ready to sell their business, and getting financials ready to present to a buyer, and gathering all the documents, answering all the questions that's needed in that process. So it could be very expensive, but then it could also it can lead to a lot of broken deals and a lot of really, really slow deals as well.
Thank you for that. Now, I know all the buy side there wasn't, the sell side really isn't your main field of expertise. So we should really get back to what you specialize in. Now, tell me, you've got 5 don'ts when buying a business. I think you're wrong. Okay. Because I think that there should be a 6th one. So tell us about your 5, if you could, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's, I think this is maybe 5 starter ones. There's probably many, many, many things that you can get wrong when trying to buy a business. But yeah, this is something I posted the other day. One of them was, don't buy a business just because you heard other people are buying in that industry. This is something you run into relatively frequently with first-time buyers. Maybe they hear that PE is buying up all the HVAC businesses, or even all the accounting.
How did you were going to say HVAC? Hey, how did I know? Because it's a craze and everybody's breaking rule number 1.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, if you're not suited, you have to be suited to solve the problems of the business that you're purchasing. And everyone has a different skill set. Maybe you were good at sales. If you've been at a spreadsheet your whole life and you've never really had to manage lower dollar an hour employees, or blue collar employees, or people outside of an office space, you're just dealing with different people, and that takes a different skill set to be able to manage those people, and you need to be ready for that. And if you're not suited to do that, then it's probably not the business to purchase. Well, on the other hand, there are some clients that we work with that are totally suited to work with that workforce, and it could be a really great fit for them. So I think it's important to look back at yourself and think, what problems am I uniquely positioned to solve, and what I enjoy solving on a daily basis, and then try and back into the business that makes the most sense for you, versus just chasing the one that everyone else is buying. Plus, the one that everyone else is buying is often going to have a higher multiple. So it hurts you double whammy.
Okay. So rule number 2 of yours was don't get fooled by pretty or ugly confidential information memorandum.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get caught up. Or maybe you see a broker put together a really nice package, right? And it's got all the nice pictures in it, and it's maybe you've been scouring biz buy sell for 3 months now, and you've seen a lot of really really bad sims, and you finally see one that's nice and pretty, but that just because they were really good at formatting and really good at putting the right colors and pictures into that presentation doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good business. So you have to be ready to dig deeper. And on the other side of it too, right? Like sometimes I've had clients that have bought businesses where there was a one pager with very little detail, and it was kind of like ugly font. And then once we dug in, we found that this person selling this business might be old school. They don't have a website and they don't have any pizzazz, but it still could be a good business. So
you're driving a stake through my heart there. You really are. You're describing me, I'm sure. Okay. Don't buy a company just because the multiple is low.
Yeah, that's another one too. Some people, like I had someone come to me once that said that they wanted to buy a bunch of accounting firms, and accounting firms often have relatively low multiples to EBITDA, especially ones that are, there's a reason for it, right? When a business is listed with a low multiple, there's generally a good reason for it. And accounting's a good example that I see all the time. You see firms listed where the owner does all the work, their pricing's really poor. It's all tax work, which is just seasonal. It's not like recurring. There's not a staff built out. There's not really a sales pipeline. It's all just referrals. And all those qualities lead to that a lot of those firms that are listed being sold at a really low multiple. And just because they're at a low multiple does not mean that they're a good business to buy.
Fix that. I can fix all those problems for the accountants.
Yes, I would come do it, please.
Yeah. Good at accounting doesn't mean that they're good at business.
Exactly. Yeah, and you don't necessarily want to fix those problems sometimes. Sometimes they're not worth fixing. Sometimes it's worth paying up for the better business that already has better processes in place. Like if you had two businesses side by side, I can keep going with the accounting firm example, and you have that one that's selling for 0.8 times revenue and it's all tax and it's really low fees. The owner does all the work. Or you have one that's selling for 1.5 times revenue, so like almost double or maybe even more than double in some cases, but it's tech forward. The owner is off production. It's a better business to buy, and it's worth paying up in a lot of cases for that better business versus trying to fix the one that has so many issues, even though it's cheaper.
Turnarounds are expensive on time and risky as a rule. Okay. Rule number 4 was don't split hairs over tenths of a turn of EBITDA.
Yeah, this is one that may be controversial, but people ask me a lot. People asking me a lot, which isn't this the right multiple that I should buy this business for? I'm paying 3.7x EBITDA for this company, and it's very squishy, right? Like if someone's saying I'm going to buy this business and they're offering 3.9 times EBITDA, and someone else is offering 3.7, like one's not necessarily silly, right, or wrong in one or the other. There's such a small difference, and what really matters is are you going to be able to execute post closing, because that tenth of a turn of EBITDA doesn't change the game if you're not going to be able to solve the problems that this business needs to solve. You're not going to be able to operate well. You're not going to be able to sell well. You're not going to be able to train the team and grow the team. None of that, like whether you got it for 3.7 or 3.8 won't matter if you don't get those things right. Like this also happens in the diligence process. Sometimes we'll go through and we'll find that EBITDA was lower than what the seller reported, but maybe it's not that much lower. Maybe we're 5% lower than what the seller reported. And it's really emotional to go back to the seller and now say, I want to reduce purchase price, right? That's the number they're going to talk about at the golf course. That's the big thing that they are hanging their hat on. And now you're kind of nickel and diming them, and that destroys some trust. Doesn't mean that you never want to retrade, right? There's certainly times where you want to retrade. You find something that is material, affects you in another way, but splitting hairs over that tenth of a turn of EBITDA, a lot of times it's not worth it, and it's not the thing that really matters.
I have to agree, I really do. Rule number 5, this one just love. Don't think about buying 2 until you bought 1. Now, I tend to buy, my model is by the tens of businesses.
There you go.
So this one is true. If you haven't got, oh, and here I am telling your story, but if you haven't got the right back end and the right systems and the right processes in place to make the first one successful, you've got no right buying another one. Sorry, over to you. I was stealing your thunder here.
No, you nailed it, and that's exactly it. And I talk to so many people who, they're early in the search process, or maybe they're just about to get an ROI, and they're telling me about how the plan is to buy a dozen of these. That's great, like what you're doing, right? It's incredible, and people can be very successful doing it, but you have to make sure that you can get the first one done first, and that you do have those processes in place. And I think people greatly underestimate how long it takes you to be prepared to buy the second one. Once you buy this business, or you bought that delicate asset and you've shook it and you found all these problems with it, and it takes a while to fix all those problems and wrap your head around potentially a completely new industry to you, and get all the right people in place and make sure the customers are still happy and the operations are working well and the tech is improved. It takes a while to do that. And I think it takes longer than what people expect it to take. Now, that being said, once you do get those things in place, and you really do have the goal to buy multiple, you can set up an operation, like what you've done, and maybe you could speak to it more, where now you are more prepared to go and buy multiple, and you might be able to buy multiple much more quickly than you would have expected. But I think it's going to take you longer than you expected to get to that.
Let's go back to rule number 4, because I think 4 and 5 are so hand in glove. Don't split hairs over tenths of a turn of EBITDA. With number 5, your first one, buy a good business. Buy a really good one. Pay the extra EBITDA as well, and buy a good one. It's going to allow you to buy the second one so much quicker, because you're just going to take everything from the first one that is a good business and bring it straight into the second one. That's going to shorten your time frame. And time is the thing that we can't get back. So that's the thing that you've really got to focus on. Now, rule number 6, and I must have missed this on your post. I know you meant to have it in there. It must have just got cut out somehow. Rule number 6 of the 6 don'ts, we're going to have to correct that heading as well when buying a business, is don't buy a business that's under 5 years old. Simple. If it's under 5 years, forget it. If it's over 5 years, it got there somehow. I don't know how it got to 5 years and still survived and the doors are still open, but it got there somehow. Therefore, it's got to be doing something right. But so many businesses shut the doors before that 5-year period. That's the first test, I think. If a business has made it to 5 years, something is happening that's working. And I don't know what it is yet, but it's made it this far. What are your thoughts? Am I totally crazy?
No, I think there's some truth to that. It takes some time.
Only some.
It takes 5 years, right? I think about the deer Bambi, right? It's like trying to stand up, and it takes a little while for that business to be able to do that. And you want to talk about a delicate asset, right? A business that's just started, is only a few years old, is just that much more delicate and that much more unproven. And I think there's a good reason why the typical ETA model is to look for a business that is enduringly profitable, that has been around for decades, that was looking for new ownership, someone to take the business to the next level, and why the model is not go and find a fresh new startup that has not been proven yet and hope that you can prove it in a way that the founder wasn't able to prove.
Okay, well, I'm going to go looking on LinkedIn and I'm going to find that article, and we'll just have to amend that, okay? I'll put it in the comments, fix it all up, make it work properly.
I appreciate it.
Now, there's something else I've got to correct people on, by the way, because I know I keep correcting me, don't I, Chris? I'm sorry about that. Now, the big sign behind Chris's head there says Midwest CPA. Now, I've delved into this in great detail. Chris has a team spread out across the country and doesn't just do deals in the Midwest. You're all over the place. Is that correct?
That is correct, yep.
Okay. So don't be fooled by that sign, everybody. You too can work with Chris. You can come on board and get Chris's guidance And okay, how many deals would you do in a year, Chris? Or how many would you look at and how many deals would you do?
Yeah, so we're engaging on in 2025, we'll engage on somewhere between 70 and 80 quality of earnings projects. Yeah, it depends on the year, but this year is probably this we're probably tracking to end up. We help a lot of other clients too with pre-LOI. We might help them look at something and might not end up engaging us for QOV. And then of those deals, people always ask like what percentage are getting to closing that get under contract, and we are engaging on QOV. It varies obviously by the year, but this year has been a bit of a tougher year with tariffs at the start of the year, and then the SBA changed some of their rules. But we're generally somewhere between 60 and 70% are getting to closing, which means that 30 to 40% are not getting to closing, whether because we found something in the diligence process or something broke along the way. And this year I have been tracking it year to date. We're right around 60% have gotten to closing.
And that's why people need to be talking with you, because we, as I said, us mere mortals, we don't get to see that many deals like that. And we don't get to delve into them like you do to see where those red flags are and see where the opportunities are. So, Chris, we're just about out of time. Can I hand over to you to say your last piece, if that's okay?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's great to connect with you, and this has been fantastic. If anyone out there is looking to purchase a business or to sell a business, we'd be happy to engage with you. We do quality of earnings analysis for people that are buying and selling small companies, and we also have ongoing accounting services if you're in need of bookkeeping or outsourced controller, outsourced CFO services, as well as tax services. We love working with small business owners on all that stuff.
Well, thank you, Chris. This conversation will save people time. It will save people hundreds of thousands of dollars. This podcast, this episode. So thank you so much, Chris, for coming along. Really appreciate you being here and the value that you've brought to our group. So thank you very much.
Thank you.